Hello, I'm Tom007. This time I prepared something more complicated than usual. I'm going to talk about the PSD, so Professional Standards Department, and the Internal Affairs Department in more detail, and how are handled your IE complaints that you've made on an officer or you received one on you. So first thing I'm going to tell you what is the PSD, so Professional Standards Department. The head of the Professional Standards Department is Commandant A1L, which is Schneider-Fickelstein. The job of the Professional Standards Department is to ensure that all officers are keeping up the standards they're expected to keep, and to resolve any conflicts and misconduct by officers, to investigate it and then punish. So the Professional Standards Department consists of the Internal Affairs, Complaint Committee, and the Policy Board. So Internal Affairs is the department that handles all the internal affairs complaints that are sent to the Complaint Committee to vote on their outcome. So in general, the IA investigates the misconduct, what the officer did, what could be changed in the officer's behavior to resolve the situation correctly, and then presents the final report of an IA complaint to the Complaint Committee. So the IA role is not to punish, it's just to investigate the IA complaints. Then the Complaint Committee gets all the complaints and final reports from complaints from the Internal Affairs, and votes on their outcome, and votes on the punishment that should be issued to the officer. It consists mainly of higher ranked officers that are experienced to deal with misconduct, and they know how any form of misconduct should be punished. The last part is the Policy Board. The Policy Board is a department where new policies are made or the existing ones are altered, so they are better, or they just have more things that should be included in policies through the whole department. So this is not only for the PSD, but as well for the whole department. So that's the rank structure of the PSD in general. This is a whole different division than the operation services. So the patrol, the traffic division you were on, maybe tactical firearms unit. The PSD is something more connected to the paperwork, and the officers that are inside these all divisions are expected to behave a bit differently from the others. I mean, this is the same, but this is the more serious if a Professional Standards Department member or officer that is inside of any division inside the Professional Standards does some form of misconduct. So it's very serious for them to be an example, not to get any sustained IAs on themselves, and to behave and act to the highest standards, perform their duties, and just oversee the officer's behavior on duty as well. So we are also expected to make IA complaints whenever we see some misconduct. So inside the internal affairs, the rank structure is a bit different. I'm not talking about the ranks of officers. So any officer ranked senior officer or above has a chance to join the IA department. However, we have some internal ways to determine permissions and what officers should handle and do. So you basically, when you join the IA department, you will most likely start as an investigator assistant. You'll be helping senior investigators and investigators to investigate complaints, and they will basically show you how to deal with them, so you can learn and become an investigator. Investigator can investigate cases that are not connected to in which officer is not suspended on their own. So they are just assigned complaints by the command, and they will deal with them if a subject, so the defendant, is not suspended. And then we have the senior investigators. They are the most experienced ones, and the senior investigators can investigate suspension cases on their own, so cases where a subject is suspended, or be assigned with an assistant or an investigator to assist them in resolving such complaints. So other than that, of course, the Internal Affairs also has its command. It consists of staff sergeants, lieutenants, and captain. Their role is mostly to keep everything working, enforce some policies on the investigators, and assign complaints to investigators in order for them to investigate. Once again, our job in the Internal Affairs is not to punish anyone. So don't be discourteous, or don't just treat us like the people who will punish you. We're not there to punish you. We just want the information we ask you for to investigate the complaint and to do our best to have all statements of all parties involved in the final report, so each party is understood by the complaint committee, and then they know how they should issue the punishment, or what punishment should they issue. So I will quickly again remind you how to create an Internal Affairs complaint. So we can go to your PLPD online, we can see the dashboard, and then to Internal Affairs and create. Here we will be allowed to fill some information about the officer. So we can search for Commander Skilled Sniper. We can search for the officer. If we are sure that this is this officer, we have all the information to identify him. We have his PLPD username, we have his Steam name, his badge number, his name in game even, and his Steam ID. Maybe his rank, that can also be useful. So we click this officer if we're sure. We fill in all these sections here. You will be allowed to fill this when you fill the first part. So you need to fill the date of the incident, the time the accident occurred in PSD time, so remember about that. We decide if we want to provide your name to the investigators or not. From my point of view, I know there are some certain situations where you want to keep your identity as a secret, but it will be more helpful, and some situations will be easier to assess when you provide your name to the investigators in general. Your identity should not be leaked to the defendant at any time directly, unless we have your approval, written one. So basically, I would just provide it because it's for the investigators to know your identity and the location, like PLPD, PD, or whatever. So we can do the next step. We can describe what happened. So now we write something that the officer did wrong, what exactly happened, and if anyone else seen that. And then we can paste the evidence here. I'll quickly skip this and delete this complaint after. I will not submit it, so we don't give anyone additional work. But here we just paste the link to YouTube, medal, screenshot on Imgur, whatever you want, and we'll be able to review it. Do not post the demo file link, because we will not review demo files. That is something that we will not do. And here we can decide to allow the defendant to view the evidence, or only allow the defendant to view the evidence if I cannot be identified by the provided evidence. So here you can prevent the IA investigator from showing the evidence to the defendant where there's your nick somewhere, or you can just be identified directly. But other than that, I would still recommend allowing it. I usually don't directly paste the evidence to the complainant, to the defendant, when it's not needed, but whenever they ask for it, I try to make sure that I can show them the evidence before doing it, so they know what they're actually being charged with or what I want to know about which situation, because they might not recall it. So as an IA investigator, you gain access to new tab under internal affairs. So we can see open compliance here. So when we go here, we can see a bunch of complaints that you're not able to see due to the fact they will be blurred out just for the safety of all the parties involved in them. But we have this unlucky colored IA here that I'm going to process with you. So it is colored just because there is an action required from me to do in this complaint. So we're going to go and see this complaint. This complaint was previously just assigned to me. So basically the complaints don't get assigned automatically. It's up to the command who they assign the complaint. So they will do some kind of a background check, quickly assess the situation, if it's a suspension case or not, and they will decide who to assign the complaint to. Then I'll just get a notification here that I have been assigned to a complaint by a command member, and then I'll be able to access this view of the complaint. So here we have the main part that was filled in the creation of the IA complaint. So officer sent a discourteous message to me via the PLPD inbox. The classification is here, 01 discourtesy. So we created the complaint just showing how you can try to help the investigators. We have all these classifications here that I covered in another video about how not to get in trouble in the PLPD. Basically, these are the same classifications as said in supervisor policy. So you can look through them and then just paste what you think is the misconduct classification. So I'm going to go ahead and choose discourtesy in a minute, because first I'm going to check for the evidence. So, okay, just gonna copy this and paste here. So we have an inbox message, just as said, on PLPD Online. That was sent in this hour, in BST time, in this date. So this date might not match because the server time might not be the BST time. So don't worry about that. And here we have the message along with the title. This message was sent to the complaint creator. So here's the complaint creator. It is Shay. It is the IA command member. And here we have the defendant that sent the message. So we can confirm that this officer is the defendant because the name is exactly the same. And he said the IA command sucks and I hate in particular stupid Shay. So in general, this is discourteous, and basically you could just tell, okay, this guy just did it, so we make a final report because it's obvious. But this is not the case. So the IA department is not really authorized, or won't really, and doesn't want to just send the complaint the final report. It is not really, this is not allowed. That's the first part. But the other is we still want to know both party statements, so we know what they were thinking they were doing, or what was their point of view while doing this misconduct. So here, after I give it the classification discourtesy and save the changes, it will show in the complaint view here at the defendant's account that there's the classification and I'm the investigator. You cannot access this complaint whatsoever from the point of view of the defendant. So you will just see that. You'll just see the complaint ID, the name of the investigator, so you can contact him in general, and the classification. Nothing else than this. You can also see the status of the complaint. So now it's assigned to the investigator. We're coming back to the main complaint view where I will request a statement. So basically, a statement of the defendant is to be requested always. So here I can look for the officer's name and it will automatically generate a template of a statement you'd usually send to the defendant. So I'll show you that in a minute when I finish it. I'm gonna send it together here. All right, so I have the statement now prepared. I will show you the few things I've done here to tweak this in order to look good for the defendant when it comes to him. So basically, when you start to write after the colon here, your text will be bold. And I don't know if it's a different font or not. So you just mark this and click this arrow here and press reset to default. As well, I want to add BST to the time when did it happen, as there is no time zone set in here, so I wouldn't just paste this. I just add BST here so he knows when the complaint did and when the misconduct occurred, so he can better recall it. So you send a discouraged message to an IA command member via the PLPD inbox. I've seen that. I have the evidence that he did that. That's why I'm so confident about just telling him what he did. Now, we have where did it happen and date, so he can recall the exact situation. And your point of view, what was the cause of you sending such a message to the IA command? So this is crucial for the defendant to answer all the questions included in the statement request, because the IA investigators always have a reason to ask you a specific question. So even if there are 5 questions in the statement request, please take your time and answer all of them as best as you can, because this is your only chance of defending when it comes to an IA complaint. So be sure to just try to answer every and each question enclosed in a statement request. Okay, I will now request the statement from the officer Steffi Uta. And after I've done that, there is a provided statements tab where I can see the statement. So when I click here, I see that the statement is not filled out yet and all the information about it. So I can remember what I asked the defendant. Now I will just select the status officer notified awaiting written statement, as I will be awaiting the officer to respond to the statement request. So there has also been an inbox created with the defendant where a major is enclosed, of course. So this is the line manager of the officer, and the officer can contact the line manager either in other message or in this one to help him provide a statement to a complaint. If he's not sure what to say in the statement request, he can ask Collier or another line manager. I mean, you just ask whoever is enclosed here and is not in IA. It's the best way to know who is your line manager. And they will be able to help the officer with a statement, to tell him what, maybe give him a hint what to write or how to handle this complaint. If the officer has any questions, he can also respond to this one, and me or Collier will be happy to answer any inquiries about the IA complaint. So there's a link to filling the statement. There are some leaflets available to you on how the process of investigation looks like. And here's the site where there are some questions and answers about compliance in general. So that's all. Now let's go back to the Steffi Uta site, where we can see that the status have changed to officer notified awaiting written statement. The classification is discourtesy, and now we can see the inbox from the perspective of the officer. So if I wanted to ask anyone here, so I would just fill it in, and then I have the message that I have requested a statement to provide. So I just click on this and I am moved to the statements tab, where I can see all my requested statements. So if I click it, I can see that all the information requested to me by the investigator and the description, which is basically your statement. So I will now fill out the statement and come back to you when it's done. So we're back here when the statement is filled. Of course, I wrote it as I want to just demonstrate the process from both sides. So I wrote, I'm genuinely sorry to X, Shay 123 and the investigators that have to deal with a complaint. I was feeling goofy and decided to message Shay some funny text, and I never thought it might be so serious. There is no particular reason for which I sent the message. So he recalled the situation, so I don't see any need to really provide him with any evidence, so he didn't ask for it, let's say. And he just recalled the situation and answered the question because it was his point of view and what was the cause of him sending the message. So there was no reason for it, he just sent it. And here is the important text. I hereby certify that the above statements are true and correct to the best of my knowledge. So just remember not to lie in statement requests, because lying in them might lead you to some more serious problems if we find out you're lying. So now I will submit this statement. The statement was submitted from what you see. You can see the complaint window that nothing changed as of yet, because the investigator changes that in the process of the investigation. So if I refresh the site, I can go here and there is a new statement on a complaint I am assigned to. So we just hop to that. And we can see that the statement was provided here. So we can go ahead and look at it again, and there's the text. So now I know what the defendant has to say about the complaint and about his misconduct. So of course I forgot something. So when the investigation process starts, we have these messages to copy. So when I start the investigation, I sent a message like that, so the complainant knew that I just started the process of the investigation. See, so even people who know what they're doing do some mistakes from time to time. So now after I got the statement, I'll have to present it to the complainant. So why is that important? Remember, everything you wrote in a statement request, will be seen by the complainant, the complaint creator. So don't just go ahead and flame him in the statement request, or just tell him that he's stupid, or just tell me he's stupid, whatever, because he will be presented the statement. So I'm going to copy the statement. It is going to paste along with the format and white background. So I'm going to reset this to default. I'm going to put it in quotation marks so the complainant can differ which is my message and which is the message of the defendant, sorry. And I'll just write something like that. This is what the defendant provided as his statement. Please leave me with your thoughts. Because I want a feedback, basically. So I still want Shay here, or the complaint creator, to respond to that message, because I want to know what he thinks about the statement. Maybe he will tell me that the statement is completely wrong or is different. Also, here, let's say, defendant apologized to me and apologized to the complainant. So the complainant can always withdraw a complaint. So after this apology, he might decide to withdraw it, and the complaint will be just closed without any action or sending it to the complaint committee. So it is also important for me to wait for the complainant to answer the statement. And when it comes to statements and responses to messages, we're basically required to wait only 24 hours for the response. Sometimes, and it happens really often, we we can of course wait longer. So if we know that the statement is very, very crucial for the investigation, we'll probably give the defendant more time to answer it. If I know that a defendant contacted me, because it can happen, and told me that he will be willing to submit a statement, but he's not ready yet, I can and I probably will give him additional time to fill in the statement. I can also see if the complaint creator seen a complaint message. So when you've just seen it, I'll be able to see that you did. And that's it for now, as we did get a statement. This is the standard process of the investigation. I did show it to the complainant. So we basically have almost everything needed to conclude the internal affairs complaint and write the final report, but I'll still wait for Shay to respond to this message here, so I know his view on the situation. So now we got the response from the complainant. I want to mention one more thing that I didn't cover. We need to change the status to complainant contacted for further details when we ask this question. So the command and the complainant news, the defendant news that the complainant was contacted for his response. So the complaint creator responded, I appreciate the fact that the defendant apologized for his actions. However, I believe such behavior cannot be accepted in the PLPD. So I figure out that he will probably not withdraw the complaint. I did got an answer from him. So now I basically have everything to conclude the internal affairs complaint. So sometimes this feedback is really, really useful. So if you're a complaint creator, just keep an eye on the complaint and keep an eye and remember to just respond to any inquiries by the internal affairs investigators, because your response might be crucial for the investigation. So now I want to do some things about what the IA can also do in order to check what to suggest in the final report. So if we open the final report tab, we can see some template here. So I'm going to go ahead and do one more thing. I'm going to go to employees and I'm going to search for the officer, Commander Skilled Sniper, Commander Skilled Sniper. It shows me the officer here. I know his Steam ID now, so I'll just copy that and I'll go to something that only employees ranked Supervisor Plus have access to. So the Sergeants Plus. So when we go to employees, we have the tab called Records. This is very important, but it will not be covered here, as this is not the part of the investigation process itself. So I'll just enter the Steam ID of the officer I want to check records for. So what I'll be looking for is some similar offenses that the officer did in the past, connected to being discarters towards anyone or superior officers, to know what to suggest. So I'll just put his Steam ID here, I'll click search by Steam ID and I'll paste the reason as the internal affairs complaint ID. So the PSD reviewing the record checks, because they log all the record checks done, they can check logs for it, and they will ask you, why did you perform a record check without a valid reason? So I have the permission to search this officer's record from the head of the professional standards. Therefore, I'll go for it. I'll search for the employee's record. So what we have here, so the dates when the officer joined the PLPD. There are some other things that are shown here as well, when the officer has some activity notices, so we can check how experienced he is, how many hours he has on duty, and some awards and medals he got. We can see all the complaints that were made on the officer. This one is currently open. This one was sustained 3 days ago, but this is not really important for now. And we can see his infractions here. So This is the list of infractions made by issued to the officer, by who, when they were made, and the description of the infraction. So if I've seen here that the officer was punished and has a written warning or a reprimand on record that said he was discourteous towards anyone, I would suggest a more severe punishment to the final report, as the officer has a history of similar offenses in the past. But that's all I can see in the record tab. Here I have some information about this officer, any notes issued to him, but this will probably be blurred out as this is not really the topic of today's video. So now we will just go back to the view of the internal affairs complaint. His record is completely clear, so I'll just mention that there's nothing that might have indicated that the officer did anything like that in the past. And I'll come back to you when I fill the final report, so you don't have to look at me writing it. So I'm back here again with the statement field. Once again, we still have to do some tweaks to the text. So I'm showing you this now. So we need to reset to the default the fonts that are automatically filled when you write after the semicolon here. So it continues in bold. And I'll quickly show you how does it work and what is featured here. So we describe what happened, because this will be presented to the complaint committee, so they don't really know about the complaint during the process of the investigation. They don't really care, because when it comes the complaint committee meeting, they will have to deal with many complaints, so they have no time to just review them in the process of the investigation. So just quickly describe what happened. We paste the link to the evidence so they can also review it. We just tell what are the accused broken policies and laws. So we say this is handbook 2B code of ethics and respect. So we just find the policy or the law that the officer broke, basically. So he didn't treat the command member with respect. So this is the policy. This is conclusion. So we basically write what is the outcome of the investigation itself. So the investigation concluded that the officer's actions were improper. The officer did send a discourteous message to an NIA command member. So we basically just state what is the outcome of the investigation. So the investigation proven that the officer did send a discourteous message. Therefore, we just write it here, because what happened can vary a bit from the actual conclusion. And then we go to the tab of recommended actions. So we have the various outcomes and actions. So outcomes are sustained, not sustained, exonerated, and a bit of others as well. So sustained means that the evidence is enough, and we did prove that the officer's actions did occur, and they were not proper. If they were proper but did occur, or we believe they should be classified as proper, we could put there exonerated, but now we know that something happened, and this is what the complainant described, but we believe this is okay. And then we have the reason. There's a template, so we just paste the complaint ID here in the square brackets and write the officer sent a discourteous PLPD online inbox to a command member. This is basically the reason of a punishment if it is issued. And then we recommend an action. So this is the punishment we recommend. We can choose from reprimands, written warnings, dishonorable discharges, demotions, but this is not the final punishment. It will be decided by the complaint committee. And then we feel the reason why we think that the officer should get a reprimand. So given the fact that the officer's record is clear and 01 discourtesy classification falls into the minor misconduct classification, I do believe that a reprimand is suitable punishment for the officer. This is basically a very short explanation of why we think that this is the correct punishment for the officer. So that's how a final report from a complaint would look like. We'd submit it, and when we submit it, we can see the final report here. So the recommended charges, actions, and everything. So we can just recall what we sent, and when we return to the complaint, we have one last thing to do, and it's go to messages and write the final report to the complainant that we just sent it for review. This status for final reports and for review just changes automatically, so there is no need to fill anything here, and that's how we concluded the internal affairs complaint. So now, after you've seen the whole idea and the whole process of an IA investigation, I want to give some special thanks at the end of the video, as it wouldn't be possible for me to make such a video without the help of Commandant A1L, or just A1L. His in-game name is Schneider Fickerstein. He gave me the permission to show you all the things featured in this video, and as well help me in the process of assigning the internal affairs investigation to me, because it had to be dealt with by the command members of the IA, as well as thanks to Shay123 or Shay Schneider in game, for filling out the statements and just helping me figure out the way to prepare the IA and handle it while it was in the process of the investigation. So these are the special thanks. Shay is a lieutenant of IA, and A1L is the major of the PSD, so he's the head of the Professional Standards Department. Don't be afraid to make IAs. Remember, if you fall under any form of blackmail by anyone, just inform the investigator about this as well, because this is important and sometimes unfortunately happens. If a defendant blackmails you, if a complainant blackmails you, this is extremely important to know that you can report it and we will know how to deal with this case. And don't be afraid to make IAs. Some officers just break policies, and this should not be accepted. So if you see some misconduct, just report it. Don't be afraid. You're not giving us much more job. This is our job to investigate those complaints. Sometimes we're even sad that we don't have any IA complaints assigned to us. So once again, if you have any suggestions for me and any topic that you want to be covered, then just message me via PLPD inbox, contact me on Discord, or under this video, I guess. So have a nice day.